You already know what's coming, guys. So remember a long time ago how I said we were going to be pulling the motor on Project Daily? Well, today is the day we started. So I did the first thing, which is Subaru knew you're going to be pulling motors on their cars. So what they did is they made it so you could remove the hood prop that goes in right down here and actually put it in the column or the strut tower itself and put it up there, and it keeps your hood pretty much like straight up. Unfortunately, I can't do what Adrian did when we pulled his and go like Honda hood and leave it up, because for some reason the windshield cowl actually hits, so I can't put it all the way up like Adrian goes straight up like that. And it's probably just the design they changed later on in the 06 STIs. Anyways, I did help Adrian, so I kind of know what's going on, but not exactly. So I printed off this list. This list holds everything that we need to do to get the motor out. So it's got like from 1 to I think 42, and of course this is going to take a while. That's why it's probably going to be split up between multiple videos. That, and also we don't have the stuff to actually pull the motor out, but there's a lot to pull out before we get the motor out itself. So some of the stuff I'm talking about is like the radiator. I'm going to be pulling out the headlights because, as you guys know, Project Daily is in here for the winter, so we got a couple months really going to clean it up. There's going to be some really cool changes that are going to go on in the engine bay, but I'm not going to tell you guys quite yet. You'll just have to watch the videos to see. Anyways, as I said, we have that list, so essentially I'm going to start off following that list and working our way down. I know some of the stuff that's got to come out is like the rad, the intake, the battery and all that stuff, disconnecting lines and stuff, and just getting the engine bay ready to pull. So some of these we can't do exactly as I say, because like start the engine. We haven't started the engine in Project Daily for like 6 months, or actually a month or two, so we're not going to do that. But that just releases the fuel pressure, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be hoping that there's no fuel pressure and learn and see if that is true or not. But we're going to probably get halfway down here and get all the belts done and stuff. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to get to, because who knows how long it's going to take. But before you start anything, what you should do is you need to grab some tape and a Sharpie. So I'm no professional, so I don't know where everything goes, and when I'm putting it back together, I don't know where everything's gonna go. So the issue is I'm trying to connect stuff back together and hoses and stuff. So what you do is when you take something off, like let's say I take off this fuel line, I write hose 1 on tape here and I write hose 1 on tape here, and then when we put the engine back in, we'll know exactly where it is and what we're connecting, so we don't end up putting stuff in the wrong spot or something like that. Anyways, if you're pulling the motor right now and you just drove the car in here or you left it overnight or something, it's going to have pressure in the fuel lines. These are your fuel lines right here. They look a little different from Adrian's, but that's just because the ones he had quick connects where I don't. But you'd be you'd have those pressurized if you just drove in here. But since we've had this battery disconnected for probably a month now, there's probably no pressure in those fuel lines, because that pump has to kick on every once in a while to keep it pressurized. So essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be hoping for the best, and we're not going to be doing what they say where you restart the engine without the fuel pump and then you essentially drain all the fuel. We're not going to do that. The very first thing we're going to do is actually go for the battery. We're going to take out the battery, and then it's going to be the intercooler. You guys all know how much I love taking out that intercooler, because we did the pipes or the couplers right here and here a long time ago, and we did a PCV hose down there because it was leaking on the block. So you guys know how much I love taking out that intercooler and how many times I've done it. So we'll probably just do a little time lapse or something like that. Also, what we'll be doing throughout this process is we're going to be repainting and refinishing a lot of stuff, especially like little bolts here and there that don't look the prettiest. I'm going to see how hard it is to zinc coat stuff and actually see if I can do some zinc coating. That would be really cool. And just really clean up this engine bay for next season so that it's looking wonderful. Anyways, as I said, the battery's the first thing to come off, so this tie down is coming off. As you can see, I'll probably be refinishing this, but that's just one of the little things here and there. I'm not going to go through everything, but yeah, there's lots to be refinished. And then when you take stuff off that has like a bolt or a nut on it, just thread that back on. I'm not going to label this because I know what this is, but like if I was taking out a bolt somewhere else, I would label it and probably label a hole or something like that, just so I know where it goes after. One thing down, 1 million more things to go. But like, yeah, even down here, that needs to be refreshed. Now it's time to do that stubborn intercooler, so let's do this. Look at all that room for activities, guys. There's so much room. But now you can see like the stuff we need to remove for the transmission, like the pitch stop, the clutch right here, the starter motor, all that fun stuff. But that won't happen until probably next episode where we start working on that. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going to be covering up, so like the turbo and the intake, so I don't get anything in them. And what I'm going to be doing there is just taking a rag essentially, putting it there so that nothing can get stuck or pushed in there, and make sure that it's all clean. And then also I'm going to be like taping up here with some tape, and then as I said, any bolts that came off are now labeled. Also, these hoses are going to be replaced probably with, I don't know, Mishimoto maybe, we'll see. A lot of hoses I think are going to be needing replacements, and also some of the gaskets and stuff when we put it back together, but that's not for a long time, so I don't got to worry about that. Now let's get the downpipe bolts done like that. There we go, so the bolts are all gone from the downpipe. Actually, those were easier than I was expecting, mostly because I think we had them off like a year. Actually, no, that would have been almost 3 years ago, but they were much easier than taking them off the first time or taking them off Adrian's car when we changed his downpipe. So I think that's about it. Now we essentially got to lift up the car and work from the bottom, so taking off or removing the motor mounts and then trying to get the bell housing bolts off, and getting, essentially we want the radiator out, we got to drain it, and then take off all the serpentine belts and stuff. And now that it's lifted up, it's time to do a couple things. So one of the things we're going to do is going to release the motor mounts, or try to. This is going to be really hard because I doubt this ever been done on this car, so they're probably seized on there. And then some other stuff we're going to be doing is removing the O2 sensor, or just unplugging it so we can pull the whole downpipe out. Removing the bolts from the downpipe and the turbo. There's like one on the bottom that I think we need to get to. And then we need to essentially remove the downpipe, so that means we're removing the bolts that are in the middle. And then we're also going to be essentially draining the coolant. And then after that, you can technically lower down the vehicle. And I was thinking, we didn't do it on Adrian's car, and it was really hard to get the motor out once we lifted it up. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm just going to do that and actually set it back down once we get the motor mounts undone and everything, because it just makes it so much easier. Oh yeah, and on those motor mounts we'll also be doing the bottom bell house bolts, just because we can get to them easier like that. So I've been under the car for probably an hour, half an hour, and I've got 2 bell housing bolts out, guys. So these actually weren't as seized in there as I thought, which kind of leads the question, was this engine pulled before? Because I thought they'd be a lot harder, but all it took was a swift pull with the socket and they came right out. But the issue is now there's, I'll show you guys when I get the rest of them out. There's a nut that's right behind the CV axle actually, and it's almost impossible to get at. It's really hard to get at those guys. Those guys, you have to go over the CV axle, but this one's like dead center, so I'm not sure how we're going to get to it. But I'll try to figure it out, and then I'll show you guys my solution, because I'm going to probably end up trying a couple things. But we're getting back closer. I thought these bell housing bolts were going to be a pain to get out. I was going to be spending all night trying to get them out, but it's not too bad, so we're making progress. But I'll see you guys once I get those nuts off. So I've spent like the last hour trying to get those stupid bolts out. It's because they're behind the axle, it's like impossible to get out. Here I'll show you. I've put some penetrating oil on, and when we do that, I think, or well, the penetrating oil sits, I also put it on the motor mounts, so then we can actually do something else. So what we're probably going to be doing is draining the radiator. But I thought I'd show you where I'm putting this penetrating oil, because holy, this is the problem with these Subarus is everything's so tightly built that it's just really hard to get some bolts off sometimes, and this is an example of one of those moments. So the motor mounts are right up there, that's one right there, and then there's one right on the other side of the cross member, but those aren't the bad ones because I just put some penetrating oil because I know those are going to be difficult, but the ones way up here, if you can even see them, so up there you can see where I got the bell housing bolt out on the top right, but the bottom left is where the actual nut is, and if you look, there's an axle in the way, so I've been using the universal joint, and I think once we get some of this penetrating oil and leave it for a day, we should be good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to work on the radiator. So the radiator is going to be different depending on what car you have, just because I have I believe this is just the aftermarket one. I don't think it's any special brand. So my drain plug and all that's going to be different. So essentially what I'm going to be doing is there's a little drain plug right up here. It's like right where my finger is. And I'm just going to open that up, let the radiator drain, and open up the top cap and let it drain through. And then once it's drained, pretty much we're going to just pull the rad, because this is a big part of the removal, and it clears off a lot of space, so we can remove the serpentine belt and detach the power steering and the air conditioning, or other way around. The drain for my radiator is right up here, so I'm just gonna undo it and hopefully don't get coolant absolutely everywhere, as I probably will, including all over my hand. And here goes. Oh. Already missed a bucket. We're off to a good start already. There's a bucket. Okay, I'm just going to open it up a little bit more. And, oh, we're missing the bucket. We're really missing the bucket, guys. But there we go. So I'm going to let that drain. I'm going to open up, it's going through the subframe. It's making a mess. But there, we got some of the coolant. I don't know if he used green coolant or whoa. It's going all the way through the subframe. I'm gonna get a towel. I think he used green coolant and blue coolant, which you're not supposed to do. It's leaking through the subframe, so it's actually draining up through there, and then it's coming through the subframe and going through that. Oh, I need another towel. When you do that, make sure you have lots of towels on hand, because that just went everywhere. It went through the subframe, so there's like holes in the subframe, and it just continued along and it like went across. Now that it's kind of slowed down, I'm gonna open up the top. Oh, and you can hear it go everywhere. More towels are needed. Now that that one slowed down and I cleaned up the trail of coolant that goes all the way to the back of the car, I'm going to disconnect this side now. So there's like the hose, the intake for it is right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect it, got another bucket. Hopefully we don't make as big a mess as we did this time, but just in case I'm going to record this, because usually this ends pretty badly. Let me tell you, that hose was a pain to get off. I was tempted just to cut it, but I just had to pull really hard and bend my bumper, and I got it off. So, while that's draining, I'm gonna start taking off the bolts here and here, and taking off this line and that line, and then the radiator is all ready to come out. So, let's get those bolts off. There we go, so we have the mounts off. I remember doing this a long time ago, kind of forgot about it. The guy, like, messed up this hole, so we re-threaded it and kind of messed it up a little bit more, so that's something we have to address. This area, we're probably just gonna honestly take this sticker off when we do other stuff. And then here is not as bad, but dusty in there, the stupid wire here, and then I removed the lines here, and I think we should be ready to take it out. I'm gonna see how well it comes out, so let's do this. So I think I have everything detached, so I think we can just pop this guy out. Maybe. Oh, you know what we're forgetting? We're forgetting the electrical to the fans. So how do I do that? Remember how I said I thought there was a connector on the other side? There is, that's why it's not coming out. Now that that's connectors off too, we can actually take it out. There we go, wow, look at it, goes so much smoother when there's no connector holding it back. And there we go, we got the rad out. And there's not, I thought there'd be more. And there we go, the rad is now, look at all the room now. You can actually see what's going on down there. You can see that the AC is so bumped in, oh wow. See how rusty that is? And you can also see that the next step is this. But tonight we're not going to get to that because it took a little bit longer than I was expecting to get the rad out. Everything just always takes so much longer than you're expecting when you're working on cars. But we did make some pretty good progress for working on it for a couple hours. And I think next episode, I think Adrian's going to come by and help us because we've pulled his motor, so he knows a little bit more than me and he knows how to put it back together. But we won't need that for a while. Also, as you can see, I moved the power steering out of the way. We'll be just pulling this off and putting it aside, and then same with the AC, so we don't have to get the AC recharged, and the power steering loop is fine. I will check the fluid and make sure it's good, but yeah, so next time it's definitely these guys and getting those bell housing bolts. We're only on like step 5 of the list, but a lot of the steps are really easy, and some of them we've actually got ahead of it, so we are probably doing a little bit better than 5, but this is a long process. You guys are going to be getting lots of awesome content, but I'm going to leave you guys with a little bit of a edit before we go, just going over some of the parts and some of the stuff we've done today. So